Hello and welcome. I am Sora Kim, and today we are going to talk about the multi-level reputational benefits of CSR, particularly in the context of a global crisis like COVID-19. When we think about multi-level reputations, we can break it down into three layers. First, there's the individual reputation, which refers to the personal standing of a CEO or business leader. Second, we have the corporate reputation, which reflects the company's overall identity and public image. And finally, there's a country reputation, which is how a nation is perceived globally. A great example of how these layers interact can be seen through the actions of well-known figures like Bill Gates and Jack Ma. Both made significant contributions such as funding vaccine research and donating testing kits during the COVID-19 pandemic. These actions allow us to explore how CSR activities can create ripple effects, influencing not only an individual's reputation but also the reputation of their company and home country, even in nations with tense political relationships like China and the US. Now, let's talk about country of origin effects. First, there is the halo effect, which occurs when a country's positive reputation influences how people view companies or individuals from that country. For example, if a nation is known for high-quality products, people might automatically assume that companies from that nation also produce great goods. In this case, the nation's positive reputation functions as a halo, boosting both corporate and individual reputations. Second, there is the summary effects. This happens when people's experiences with companies from a particular country shape their overall view of that country. If someone has good interactions with companies from a particular nation, they're likely to form a positive impression of that entire nation. Both of these effects, halo and summary, help explain how CSR actions can not only benefit CEOs and their company, but also reflect positively on the company they're from. Next, let's talk about how the perceived motives behind CSR take part in shaping these reputational outcomes. As we discussed in the last module, altruistic motives, those seen as genuinely benefiting the public, lead to better outcomes. But self-serving motives, which may be seen as more egoistic, can often reduce the positive impact of CSR. What's interesting here is how these motives are perceived differently across cultures. In my research, I found that as Americans' awareness of Jack Ma's CSR activities grew, the positive effects of perceiving altruistic motives behind his actions increased. In contrast, in China, learning about Bill Gates' donations didn't significantly enhance the positive impact of perceiving altruistic motives behind his actions. When it comes to self-serving motives, there's another fascinating distinction. In the US, people who were less aware of Jack Ma's donations tended to view his actions negatively if they believed he had self-serving motives. But as they learn more about his donations, even those who initially viewed his actions as self-serving started to have a more positive opinion of him. In China, however, this dynamic played out differently. Self-serving motives didn't lead to the same positive shift. But the more Chinese learn about Gates' donations, the less negative the impact of self-serving motives became, even though it didn't turn entirely positive as in the US. This highlights how cultural differences and CSR knowledge can affect public perceptions. These differences can be understood through what's called institutional theory, which suggests that public expectations of businesses differ depending on a country's level of institutional development. In more developed countries, like the US, consumers tend to hold businesses to higher ethical standards, leading to more skepticism. However, in these same countries, people are also more willing to accept that businesses may pursue both public-serving and self-serving goals. In contrast, in less developed countries, self-serving motives are often less accepted, although they may become less problematic as people become more informed about companies' CSR actions. So, what can we take away from all this? First, CSR can have an impact across multiple levels: individual, corporate, and national. During COVID-19, the CSR efforts of Bill Gates and Jack Ma didn't just improve their personal reputations, but also their companies and even the reputations of their home countries, the US and China. Second, the effects of country of origin are important in shaping perceptions. Both halo and summary effects can amplify the reputational benefits of CSR. Third, the motives behind CSR actions matter. Altruistic motives tend to produce positive outcomes, and this effect can be strengthened by increasing public knowledge, as we saw with Jack Ma in the US. In contrast, self-serving motives can create skepticism, but as people learn more about the CSR actions, they may become more accepting, especially in countries with higher levels of institutional development, like the US. Fourth, varying acceptance of self-serving motives of CSR found in the US and China demonstrates that cultural and institutional differences can shape how people perceive CSR activities. Finally, it's important to note that increasing public knowledge about CSR can help mitigate negative perceptions and even lead to reputational benefits across borders, sometimes even improving relations between countries with political tensions like the US and China. In this way, CSR donations can serve as a form of soft diplomacy. To conclude, CSR is a powerful tool that can shape individual, corporate, and national reputations. It's essential for leaders and companies to engage in CSR, especially during global crisis, as these actions can have far-reaching effects that go beyond corporate or national borders. By understanding the dynamics of CSR motives, country of origin effects, and cultural differences, organizations can maximize the reputational and social benefits of their CSR efforts. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next module.